guys, and welcome back to the Crawl Room. We're here once again in this wonderful ranty room for all things Formula 1. Or should that be Formula Farce? Because I think I've had it. I think I've had enough now. I don't know why I keep watching this sport. It is absolute dog shite, isn't it? This is the pinnacle of motorsport, supposedly, and they can't even enforce track limits properly. Not only when they enforce it, it's a joke, but it's a joke why cars and drivers are getting them. I mean, just to summarise the fucking pinnacle of how bad the track limits were this weekend, Nico Hulkenberg got his third strike and a black and white flag for breaking down. And he pulled off the track. Well, all four wheels were off the white line, governor, so I'm afraid that's going to have to be a final warning. The car's on fucking fire. Like, this is ridiculous, right? So we're okay to penalise Nico Hulkenberg or give him a black and white flag for being out of the race and pulling off to a safe place. But then Esteban Ocon goes all race without incurring a black and white flag, any time penalties, not even on his final warning. And then when Aston Martin appeal it, because they're like, hang on a minute, there were all cars going off everywhere, and then the FIA are like, yeah, you're right, actually, let's sort this out. Esteban Ocon gets awarded 30 seconds worth of time penalties afterwards, and the way they deemed it was that you cause 4 offences, you get a 5 seconds, you cause 5 offences, you get 10 seconds, then if you incur another 4, you get another 5, and then another 5 penalties, you get another 10. So that means, like, Esteban Ocon went off the track. How many times is that? 10 times. He went off the track 10 times. Enough to get a penalty. Or is it even more? No, it's 10, isn't it? Yeah, 10 times he went off to get 30 seconds worth of time penalties. And in the race, he wasn't even given a black and white flag. Sergio Perez was given a black and white flag twice in the race. Once right at the very start, once right at the very end. And then he incurred no penalties after the race. I thought that was a slam dunk, that. I thought, well, hang on a minute, if he's got a black and white flag twice, that surely means he's got time penalties coming his way. Oh, no, there's no penalties for Perez. How the fuck was this policed? It's just an absolute joke. Absolute farce. And the only way you're going to stop this shit is by saying cars can drive wherever they friggin' want, or you bring back gravel. It's as simple as that, but they won't want that because they need to keep the money going round. That's how it works in Formula 1 now. Everywhere's a run-off, so it doesn't matter how talentless the driver is, they can go off, very rarely crash into anything, and just keep going just to get them sponsors just that little extra 5 seconds of fucking time on the telly. Whereas if it's beached in the gravel and out, you get fuck all. It's just bullshit. The whole thing is bullshit. I am at the end of my tether. I just cannot stand it. I really cannot. It's fucking crap. This whole season has been shite, right? And this sprint race format, I still don't like it, but that sprint race was the most exciting race we've had all season. And it wasn't even a proper race. But the only reason it was exciting was because of the changeable weather conditions. The track drying up. Are people going to gamble and stay on inters? Are they going to pit for slicks? The race itself is fucking dog shit. It's just a joke. And then when they cross the line, the top 10's not the top 10, but the podium's alright. That's safe. We've managed to make it so that that's safe, but everything else is swapping. 4th down to 19th. All that changes, yeah. What a joke. What an absolute joke. I'm sick to the back teeth of this shit sport. Why the frig do I watch it? And then to top it all off, as if it's not bad enough with pissing track limits pissing you off, you've got David Croft. Just fucking David Croft. He just couldn't get anything right. I'm sorry, but how that man has kept that job for that long, I have no idea. How he got it in the first place is a mystery. He must have something over a Sky executive, I'm sure. He's got some scandal in his closet that says, look, if I'm not a Formula 1 commentator, I'm going to tell him about you being a naughty boy. That's how it must be, because David Croft is dog shit. Absolutely dog shit. That first lap alone, he called Stroll Alonso, losing out loads of positions. No, it wasn't Alonso. It was Stroll, David. It's easy to see. Then he had contact. He was saying that there was contact between Sonoda and Hulkenberg at turn 1. They were nowhere fucking near each other. Then we had Alonso overtaking himself. How good's that? Fernando Alonso was overtaking himself. And then throughout the entirety of the race, we kept calling Ocon Gasly and Gasly Ocon. It's not difficult, David. It's not difficult. I know the cars might look the same. There's only 2 of them on track. And just look where they are. Look what they're battling against. I just can't believe it. I just cannot believe it. I'm sure we had a situation as well where Hulkenberg and Magnuson were together and they called one the other. He's just so shit. So shit. So not only are you watching a shit race, but it's commentated by a shit fucking commentator, and then not only is that even shitter, but then you're getting track limits put on top of it that makes it even shitter. I just can't get over it. And then if that's not enough, then you've got the drivers moaning about that car ahead of me went off, that car ahead of me went off. Lewis Hamilton were at it. There was, who else was at it? There was Perez at it at one point. There was Sainz saying, oh, I'm getting intimidated by the car behind. Yeah, it's called racing, Carlos. For fuck's sake, it's just absolute dog shit. Absolute dog shit. The sport is on its knees. This is fucking ridiculous. And this is what happens when you constantly play up to this fucking Drive to Survive pantomime. It's not a sport, it's a pantomime. Did he do track limits? Oh yes he did. Oh no he didn't. That's all it is, all the way through. You've got David Croft that just tries to get sound bites every 5 seconds by saying something stupid. Just fucking ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I just can't deal with it. I just cannot deal with it. How do I even continue with this season? I've no idea. I just can't keep doing this shit to myself. I am wasting hours of my time every day watching a sport that I hate. That is just not the sport I fell in love with at all. It's a joke, an absolute joke. Right, anyway, if you've never seen this series before, I award the drivers out a maximum of 10 points based on their race weekend's performance. I go all the way down to 0 if they have a particularly bad one. Take a look out for bonus points though. There's sometimes an offer for some drivers that do something extra special during a race, and on the rare occasion I do award minus points to those drivers that do something extra special, but for all the wrong reasons. So let's take a look at the current Cruel Room standings then. It's on the screen now for you to take a look at. Thanks as always go out to Dan Bartlett, formerly of Mushy Gaming, for providing with the scoreboard, the intro that you've seen. He does the driver icons when they pop up as well. He'll do the outro as well because he's an absolute legend, and without him this series would be absolutely dog shit. So yeah, there you go. Take a look and see where your favourite driver is. Can you see him going up? Can you see him going down? Based on what I'm going to score him in this race. So just for some context before we start with Max Verstappen, the way I've done it is, the way these drivers are going to be coming out is the positions that the FIA classified them in after all the penalties were given, if that makes sense. But the points I have awarded the drivers are the points in which they finished in the actual race itself, as they crossed the line basically, because everyone from 4th downwards just changed, didn't they? And I could not be asked to go through the point system again to give penalties to drivers for track limits if they were never warned in the first place that they were close to breaking them. I mean, as mentioned already, Ocon got 30 seconds and he didn't even get a black and white flag at any point during that race. How could he know we were breaking track limits? It's bullshit. So that's how I've done it. I'm doing it how the order is classified officially on the F1 website, but the points I am awarding are based on how they actually crossed the line. There we go. I'm glad that's cleared up. So the winner, of course, Max Verstappen. What did he do this weekend? He did alright, didn't he? I suppose he won everything again as always. No change there, no surprise. Sprint race, gained over 20 seconds over his teammate. Had a little tussle at the start there in the sprint, didn't he, against Sergio? That was all fair, I don't care. That's racing, it's what we need to see. We can't be getting fucking dramatised and getting your knickers in a twist because cars are nearly taking each other out. That's what it's called. It's called racing. You overtake each other, and that's the end of that. Max got fed up with Perez. Perez got fed up with Max. A little bit of a lover's tiff. They're all best friends again now. It's fine. Max is champion anyway. Who gives a shit? And yeah, Max Verstappen, it's the perfect 10 this weekend. You can't get first in every session and not be expected to not get a 10. So it's a 10. His run of leading every lap of every race for God knows how long finally came to an end when Red Bull decided they were going to stop Max first, so Leclerc slipped through. But yeah, I mean, it's a run that I don't really think Max cares about, to be honest, but it's just nice for the stats, isn't it? It's nice to see he's always behind the light, you know, he's behind Alberto Ascari still, and I think Michael Schumacher as well as the other one that is behind for the most laps led consecutively, so yeah. it's good to see that those legends of the names can still hold their own in a stat. You know, it's nice. But yeah, Max Verstappen this weekend, a perfect 10, flawless weekend. Well done to him. Bravo, Max. Next up, it is, of course, sha-la-la, sha-la-la, la-la-la, la-la-la. Saying came so close to securing pole position in the race. Didn't quite happen though, did he? As mentioned, he led some laps there. What happened in the sprint? I'm not interested, actually. I don't care about the sprint. But yeah, in the race itself, he drove really well, didn't he, actually? Led at one point. Sainz looked faster than him, but Ferrari weren't letting Sainz through, Leclerc weren't letting Sainz through, so that's how that happened, but fair enough. And Leclerc ended up finishing a fantastic second place, and had anything gone wrong in that pit stop that Verstappen and Red Bull decided to do to get the fastest lap point, if it had all gone wrong, Leclerc were there to pick up the pieces, only a few seconds behind him, so yeah, wasn't safe by any stretch of the imagination, was it? But as for, you know, Charles Leclerc, perfect weekend really by him. Can't fault it. That's probably the best we've seen Ferrari. And like I said, so close to a pole position, has to be commended. So yeah, shalala, going to be 10 points on the crawl room to him as well. Fully deserving of a perfect 10 for me. Drove really well. 10 points too. Shalala. Finishing in third place, we come to Checo! Sergio Perez. At least he's on the podium, but once again out in Q2 for the fourth consecutive time, which is the first time since David Coulthard in Brazil 2008 that at least one Red Bull has been knocked out consecutively and not got into Q3. How mad is that? How mad is that? A stat that he doesn't want, but he's got it now. So let's see if he ups his game for Silverstone this weekend. I've got a funny feeling he'll probably get into Q3, but I don't think he's going to deliver the goods too much. But we'll see anyway, we'll see. Checo finishing third. Yeah, you know, good recovery from 15th on the grid. Fair play to him for that. Nice one, nice job, well done. But you still did shit in qualifying. So for Sergio Perez, I'm going to award him a solid 7. And I think that's generous based on how shite he has been doing of late. But, you know, at least he's on the podium again. First time since Miami. And he's in the best car on the grid. Not really acceptable, is it, that he's on the podium? But there you go, that's enough. Solid 7 for Checo. And yeah, that's the end of that. Finishing fourth place, it is Lando Norris in the mighty McLaren. He was something else this weekend, wasn't he, Lando? He fully deserves to finish in this fourth place. He did cross the line 5th, elevated to 4th, of course. But yeah, what a fantastic effort this weekend and achievement. Rightfully so, got driver of the day as well. Well chuffed to see that. I'm glad that Perez didn't get it because there was like a small window that, you know, it's only like by 1% that Norris was leading that. And I thought, no fucking way. No way are people voting for Checo. He's in the best car on the grid and he's made progress. Wow. Fuck me. So yeah, anyway, I'm glad that Norris got it. Fully deserved it. That McLaren, that's the best we've seen in it this year. Definitely those upgrades are working. The circuit clearly works for him as well, with it being a short lap. And yeah, Norris was my driver of the weekend, to be honest with you. He drove so well. So for Lando Norris, it is going to be nothing less than 11 points. 11 points on the crawl room to Lando Norris. Absolutely fantastic effort, Lando. Fully deserving of a bonus point from me there. Whether it was a 5th place or a 4th place finish, that was sublime, and he fully deserves recognition for that. And that is the best we've seen of McLaren so far this season. And yeah, long may it continue. Silverstone next. I hope the home crowd brings an extra couple of horsepower to that car. I hope it brings a little bit more out of Lando, like it always seems to do. And you never know, if this pace continues, could we see an unlikely podium for McLaren? I bloody hope so, but let's wait and see. So for now, Lando Norris, it's 11. Securing 5th place after crossing the line 6th, it is, of course, Fernando Alonso. A top 5 finish for him will certainly not go amiss. It wasn't Aston Martin's weekend at all this weekend, and it wasn't really Alonso's, to be fair, either. Fernando really looking to be shown up at times by Stroll, out-qualified in both sessions, I believe. The sprint and the actual qualifying. If I'm right in saying, I think I'm right in saying. And then in the race itself, he did jump Stroll at the start, contrary to what David Croft believed when Alonso overtook himself. Fucking superb, that, innit? But yeah, you know, Alonso this weekend, once again, it's been a solid weekend by him. He got unlucky with the pit stop strategy, actually, because they got the VSC wrong. They'd already gone past when the VSC came out, so had to do a whole lap at slow pace, but other cars had jumped them. So it didn't favour Stroll a hell of a lot. You know, it compromised Stroll, but it didn't compromise Alonso as much, but still lost time. And yeah, for Fernando Alonso overall, it's 7.5. 7.5 on the crawl room team. I think that's fair. Good score. A solid weekend, but nothing special. You know, we've not seen the exciting, dizzying Aston Martin of constant podiums, have we, this weekend? And they just never look like podium pace. So yeah, Fernando Alonso, 7.5. And then we come to Carlos Sainz. Smooth operator. Smooth. Well, it would have been smooth, wouldn't it? Would have been smooth. Carlos Sainz was done the dirty here this weekend. Crossing the line 4th, dropping to 6th as a result of a 10-second time penalty post-race. Fantastic stuff. Well done, FIA. Fucking love you. But yeah, you know, Carlos Sainz this weekend, I felt, was the better Ferrari overall. And as much as it didn't work out for him in the race, because he had a 5-second time penalty to serve in the race itself for track limits, that's on him, that. Absolutely no problem at all with that. You get it served, you get it done. He did just that. Lost out on time. But there was that phase in the race where he was chomping at Leclerc's arse and he was saying, guys, let me through. I am so much quicker. And you could tell he was quicker, but just not quick enough to get past an identical car. You know, so it was frustrating for that, because I think had he been allowed ahead of Leclerc, we could have seen a double Ferrari podium. I think it would have still maybe been Leclerc ahead of Sainz because of the 5-second time penalty. But I think there would have been enough of a gap that he was ahead that Perez didn't get him. Then, if that had meant that obviously he was in safer ground, wasn't battling, he probably wouldn't have accrued the additional post-race penalties. So I think Sainz was done the dirty this weekend. He deserved a podium. He deserved to get tread better from Ferrari, because he was looking like the lead Ferrari all weekend long. It was just that final qualifying session. He didn't quite get it together to beat Leclerc, which was a shame, because had it been the other way around, guarantee you that they'd put Leclerc ahead of Sainz. Definitely. But as it was, Sainz was the faster car this weekend, in my opinion. Just got unlucky in that final qualifying session and lost out as a result of that. Stuck behind his own teammate, couldn't make any progress. Did what he could to fight off Perez, but inevitably a better car. Served that 5 seconds that cost him the time there. But yeah, overall this weekend, he finishes 6th, but I don't care about that. The overall finishing position. That's twice this season. Sainz has been done dirty by bullshit FIA. It was done dirty at Australia. He's been done dirty again. And then his team's fucked him up a little bit as well. So, not acceptable. Carlos Sainz this weekend, I'm scoring him 9.5. 9.5 on the crawl room. You can disagree with me all you want there, but Sainz has been a little bit off it this season. This weekend he was well on it and deserved a lot more than 6th place. 9.5 to Carlos Sainz. Then we come to George of the Russell. Watch out for that Q3, because he didn't fucking get there, did he? Didn't get there. Once again he's out in Q2. Piss poor effort, George Russell. What is up with you, man? What is happening to you? Okay, sprint qualifying, you know, he had a hydraulics problem. Don't matter, I'm not asked about sprint. But in the main race, where it bloody counted, you did crap. P11 is not acceptable, I'm sorry, it was dog shit. And then here he is finishing 7th as a result of his teammate getting additional penalties that swap him round. So, I'm not interested. Hamilton was the better car this weekend, the better driver overall. As much as Hamilton was moaning about the car and yet incurred more track limit penalties, even with the genuine 5 seconds he received in the race, he still finished ahead of George. Post-race, don't care about. I'm talking about him as ahead, but in reality, he did finish behind Hamilton. So for George Russell this weekend, it's 5.5, just slightly above average. And that's all he's getting. 5.5 to George Russell. Next up, as mentioned already, it is of course Lewis Hamilton in the other McLaren. Crossed the line 7th, demoted to 8th, if that's right. I think it is. Or was he? No, he must have been 7th, yeah, because Alonso was 6th up to 5th. Anyway, not interested. But yeah, Hamilton was 8th in this standings, but I'm classifying him as where he was, which was ahead of his teammate anyway. By no stretch of the imagination was it a fantastic weekend by Lewis. The qualifying looked solid enough in P5. The race looked good enough. Was rivaling some of the quicker cars at one stage and then just fell away, didn't he? Norris was at him. And Norris got past him, so that was a point proven where the Mercedes just didn't look like it had the race pace at all. And then in the race, he was moaning on the radio, wasn't he? Oh, guys, Lando's gone off again. This has happened. What's happening here? I can't believe it. I'm not going off anywhere. This is ridiculous. Tell me what's happening. Oh, guys, this car's dog shit. It won't turn. I know I'm breaking track limits. My car won't turn. Oh, God, as mentioned, it weren't bad enough having to put up with David Croft and shit FIA. Drivers moaning. Can't be dealing. So for Lewis Hamilton this weekend, I'm going to score him 6.5. 6.5. I think he showed George Russell up this weekend. He outraced him, certainly, even with a car that was clearly compromised and not to Hamilton's liking. But we know it's not to your liking, Hamilton. You've just got to keep your mouth shut in future. So yeah, probably docked him a point off for that, but there we go. 6.5 to Lewis Hamilton. Finishing 9th place after crossing the line in 10th is Lance Stroll. Disqualified on the cruel room anyway, based on his previous exploits of being shite. This one was probably one of his better showings, so as a disqualification boosted him? Possibly, yeah. And as we already mentioned with the VSC coming out, the timing of it, Aston Martin got it wrong, and Stroll lost out a lot of time. He was in the race in about 7th, just behind Alonso when the VSC came out, and after the VSC ended, he was down in 14th. So that really, really did compromise Stroll's race, and I don't blame that on Stroll at all, just one of those things. And then in the race, he crossed the line 10th, elevated to 9th. It's a couple of points. It's good salvage, stuck in DRS trains. I don't think Stroll did much wrong this weekend, actually. I thought he drove really well, all things considered. But, as it is, he's disqualified on the cruel room anyway, and he'll remain that way. So, yeah, nothing to Lance Stroll because he's disqualified, but guess a little acknowledgement from me of, yeah, you didn't do bad. Securing the final points paying position, it is Pierre Gasly in P10 after crossing the line 12th, was it? Was it 12th? Probably. It was outside the points anyway, wasn't it? Gasly this weekend has done okay, hasn't he? He was outside the points most of the race. Didn't really get up to much, didn't really do much, but that's life, isn't it? The Alpine was only ever going to be squabbling for these final few points paying positions, especially with the cars ahead, and an on-form Norris as well, let's not forget that. He was well up there where he normally isn't, so it meant that there's only really 9th or 10th place to fight over, to be honest with you. But as it was, Gasly picked up the point as a result of the penalties, but I've judged him as crossing the line outside the points. For Pierre Gasly, I have awarded him 8 points, though, to be fair. I have awarded Gasly 8 points. And I do think that is a justified points score that he has awarded, because he did a solid job. Like I said, there wasn't many points on offer this weekend because all the cars ahead finished where they should. You had an on-form Norris. It didn't leave much room or slim pickings for anyone else. And yeah, he was outside the points, but he did an okay job, didn't he? So yeah, 8 points to Pierre Gasly. Finishing just outside the points, and he was just outside the points in whichever classification you look at it. Either this one I'm talking about, the official final standings, or the one as he crossed the line. Unfortunately, it's Alex Albon in P11. Oh my Jesus. Can't believe it. Just missing out on points. In whatever form, whatever guise. He picked up a further 10-second time penalty, didn't he, for something? Track limits, of course. But yeah, unfortunately for Alex Albon this weekend, it was a case of what if, wasn't it? He had such a great start to the race, was up in as high as 9th place, looking like best of the rest, doing a solid job. But the car, at the end of the day, he just fell down the order ever so slightly. The 5-second time penalty he got in the race didn't help him. That dropped him behind Gasly or Ocon or whatever Alpine David Croft wants to call it. It did drop him behind Gasly, and it was just a shame because he'd come so close and done so well. But yeah, as mentioned, that 5-second time penalty in race was what did cost him the points paying position. So one of those things, unfortunately, but a solid weekend nonetheless. The sprint race was particularly good as well. He got himself up as high as 7th or 8th at one point, wasn't he? He was in the points of the sprint format, so that was good, but then had to go on to the slick tyres because he was chewing up his inters, and had he stayed on the inters, he wouldn't have got the points anyway, because the tyres, the cars that did pit for slicks would have chewed him up anyway. So it was in a no-win situation there with the weather conditions. But overall this weekend for Alex Albon, so close but not quite. But yeah, it'd have been nice to see him pick up a point, but he didn't quite make it. 7.5 is going to be awarded to Alex Albon this race weekend. Shame to see him just miss out, but that's life, as they say. Next up, it is Zhou Guanyu having a much better weekend than his teammate, it must be said. Finishing 14th in the race, elevated to 12th with the penalties. And yeah, didn't really see much of Zhou this weekend, but that's it, isn't it? That's how it goes. The Alfa Romeo is really struggling as it is. So yeah, Zhou, quick and easy, 6.5 to him for that. And yeah, it's nice to see him better after Canada, because Canada was absolutely just a weekend to forget for him. But this weekend it was Bottas' turn to be shy. Zhou Guanyu though, 6.5 on the crawl room. Securing P13, it is Logan Sergeant. A solid weekend by Logan, it must be said. As mentioned, this is the final race that Logan doesn't have the updates. His updates that Alex has got already will be coming for Silverstone, so let's judge him a lot fairly, you know, a lot more based on equal terms of Alex next race on. But I think Logan Sergeant, nonetheless, securing P13. I think he was 13th in the race as well, wasn't he? I think the Williams didn't move, despite all the penalties. But Logan Sergeant did a solid job this week, and he was on my radar. He was a bit terrible in qualifying, didn't quite get that lap together. But in the race itself, made some good progress, didn't he, in the early stages? Got ahead of quite a few cars and was there chomping at the bit in that 11th to 13th area, just not quite on the cusp of points. He got himself into the points once, didn't he, because of pit strategies, but then tumbled back down, but then worked his way back up to 13th. I think that's worthy of a solid 7 myself. I think he's done well. That's probably one of the best drives we've seen of him since Bahrain. Which was definitely his best. But yeah, that was encouraging signs. So in an outdated car, and we can clearly see that the updates are working for Albon to start scraping points. If Sargent gets the updates, could we see him inside the points? Who knows? Silverstone might be a bit of a tricky circuit to prove how good the upgrades are, but nonetheless, I hope Logan does well. So solid 7 for now, but those updates, I hope they work wonders for him. Finishing 14th place, it's Esti Besti Ocon. Yeah. Absolutely kit-worthy, gag-worthy. Esteban Ocon this weekend, unless he was called Pierre Gasly, I'm not sure. That's David Croft. Yeah, didn't really do much this weekend, did he? Although I do think he did deserve to be scored a solid 7, and that's what I've given him. A solid 7 this weekend, as I've already mentioned. Slim pickings for these B teams, wasn't much on offer. Ocon finished, was it 12th anyway? And then these 30-second time penalties put him down to 14th. Either way, whatever. But yeah, solid 7 to Ocon this weekend. Yeah, just not quite on the pace of Gasly. And overall, you know, some good overtakes at times, wasn't he? He was battling well with K-Mag, I think he was. Or I might actually mix him up now with Gasly. I can't remember. But nonetheless, 7 points to Ocon. Then we come to Valtteri Bottas, and some people could say, yeah, he did terrible this weekend. And to be honest, I think I should have done as well, but I forgot. So what are you going to do about it? Sack me, eh? Sack me. Tell you what, give me a time penalty. How many seconds am I adding on? How long's this video got to be? Fuck's sake. Yeah, so... You know, Bottas this weekend had a bit of a nightmare, didn't he? He spun in qualifying, caused a red flag, but got going again. That's the second time we've seen Alfa Romeo do that in 2 races. And then in the race itself, he picked up a bit of wing damage, didn't he, at one stage? And we're not really sure how that happened. I don't think we ever saw a replay of that. So I've scored him in the middle of the row 5. He was in a damaged car. We could see his wing was flapping about all over the place. We don't know if he came in for a wing or not. The FIA weren't, or the Formula 1 TV coverage weren't asked about actually showing anything like that. So, yeah, you know, Bottas, middle of the row 5, and that's that. Finishing in 16th place, it is Oscar Pastry. What's your favourite pastry? Tell me about it. What do you think it is? Oh, I don't know.
Hey, what about Lance Stroll? He's really doing Canada proud. He hit more walls than I could ever manage at Monaco.
There we have it then, guys. Latifi of the week to Oscar Piastri. Nightmare, really. Nightmare. I know Norris had the updates, absolutely fair enough, but Piastri was very much the second driver this weekend, wasn't he? And it's a shame to say that, because at other circuits, he has been right up Norris's arse, hasn't he? He really has been. But this weekend, it was just an off weekend overall. As mentioned, we know it's an update thing, but I don't think the updates made that much of a difference. I just think Norris was really on form. and Oscar just struggled to get to grips with the circuit. So, yeah, so Latifi of the week, the first of the season for Oscar Piastri, and definitely deserving of it. Down here in 16th, teammate crossed the line 5th, elevated to 4th. Not great, is it? In fact, Oscar Piastri actually crossed the line 17th, elevated to 16th, wasn't he? So, even this is like a little bit better than how he actually finished. So, yeah, Oscar Piastri, big shame this weekend, but very much an off weekend. Latifi of the week to him. Finishing in 17th place in the end. I think he actually got 14th in the race, didn't he, if I remember rightly? It is Nick de Vries. This weekend was a little bit more encouraging, I must be said. It wasn't anything special by any stretch of the imagination, but at least he's ahead of Yuki Tsunoda, and prior to all these penalties and everything, he was still ahead of Yuki. So I think this weekend has been a solid one by De Vries. Is it enough to turn heads? Absolutely not. Is it enough to keep his seat at AlphaTauri? Well, I still think he deserves a full season anyway, but in terms of Helmut Marko and whatever he's going to decide, because he's a knob, this result is just a nil and void, really. He didn't do shit, but he didn't do great. So for Nick de Vries this weekend, it's going to be 6 points on the cruel rooms of him. That was based on him finishing in 14th place. The fact he's received 15 seconds worth of penalties and still finished ahead of Yuki shows you really how badly Yuki's weekend went. So yeah, Nick de Vries not sparkling by any stretch of the imagination, but above average. 6 points to him. Finishing in 18th place, it is Kevin Magnuson. Crossed the line in 19th on last of the runners, but elevated one position. Wowee! Yeah, it's just been a nightmare weekend, hasn't it, for K-Mag? Just not really had the same kind of performance as Hulkenberg, to be honest with you. Bit like a Lando and Oscar scenario. You know, you've got one driver up there doing really well and the other one doing okay, but nothing special, you know. K-Mag this weekend, we know the tyre deg is absolutely awful with the Haas, and it doesn't matter how quick it is over one lap or how quick it is in an early stint, it chews its tyres up, and that's it. You know, they've got to do more stops than everyone else, they've got to try and save tyres like everyone else, the tyres run out sooner than everyone else. It's a fact of life, and K-Mag is down here, not through any fault of his own, but at the same time, his race wasn't spectacular up to the tyre, you know, wear scenario. So for Magnuson, it's just slightly better than average, and it's 5.5 this weekend to Kevin Magnuson, because that's how I think it should go. He didn't do anything special, but yeah, I can't fully blame him for the car he's got. 5.5 to K-Mag. Finishing last of the runners in 19th place, it is of course Yuki Tsunoda.
Hey, let me riddle you this, guy. What would be a worse driver lineup? Me and Stroll or me and Villeneuve?
Oh, Yuki. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. The season you've been having and the points I've been awarding and the praise that I've been giving you. And we come to Austria where I thought, do you know what, over a short lap, that AlphaTauri might just be able to get a good stonking lap in qualifying and just hold them off. But it just didn't happen, did it? And for Yuki Tsunoda this weekend, it wasn't anything special anyway. And then it just got a whole lot worse in the race, didn't it? Tried making a move up the inside of one of the... Who was he trying to make a move up the inside at turn 1? And he tagged the back of Bottas, didn't he? Bottas looking up to get a puncture, and it ripped his front wing off, did Sonoda. He wasn't aware that he had the damage, then he got as far as turn 4, and then he just completely locked up. That's to take avoidance action. Went down through the gravel, tumbled to the far, far, far reaches of the back of the grid, had to pit for a nose. He was almost a lap down already by this point. And his weekend just never got any better from there, did it? It really didn't, unfortunately, for Yuki. It was just a disaster class. He forced Magnuson off the track and got a penalty for that, or was that De Vries? Could have been De Vries, actually, that, to be honest with you. I forget now. David Croft rubbing off on me, sorry, guys. So, yeah, you know, for Sonoda this weekend, it has to be a Latifi of the week. He undid what little effort he'd already done in the qualifying. And I'm not saying it should have been anything special. It is a dog shit car. But, you know, it would have been nice just to see him on the road, because had he driven smartly and cleverly, not picked up time penalties, if he'd have been in a good position, I think he'd have stayed within the track limits, knowing that I've not got the pace, but if other people get penalised, I can pick them off. But because he'd just let all his efforts go to waste on lap 1, cost himself so much time by needing a wing, and costing himself time by not knowing he had damage and tripping through the escape road, yeah, his race was over, and then when he did manage to fight off with a couple of stragglers, He was just driving here, there and everywhere to try and overtake him, and the track limits penalties got him because he crossed the line 18th and then was demoted to 19th. So there you go. Big shame to Yuki Tsunoda, and a Latifi of the week to him, unfortunately. His first one of the season and his first error. So his first error has been big enough for me to award him a Latifi. Not great, but I hope he books his ideas up for Silverstone. But for now, it's a Latifi of the week to Yuki. And last but by no means least, we come to Nico Hulkenberg. What can be said this weekend for Nico Hulkenberg? What a fantastic job. I mean, here he is as a retirement, and I just cannot believe that the only retirement had to be Hulkenberg. Like, was he going to score points in that race? Absolutely not. You know, that Haas was dying already by the time he had the engine failure. You know, he'd already had to pit early because of the tyre wear was excessive. But I don't normally talk about the sprint race, but if we're going to talk about the sprint race for one thing and one thing only, that was Hulkenberg's race. That was his drive in that sprint. Not only was it a fantastic qualifying effort in both the actual qualifying and the sprint, but it was a really great effort in that sprint to get himself 6th place finish in the end. As he was running round in 5th on the inters, it was chewing its inters to bits. They went onto the medium compound tyre and he blitzed the field and got back up to 6th place. If he'd have had another lap, he'd have got both those Aston Martins. He drove fantastically well, giving Haas 3 worthy points there. In the race itself, as short as it was inside that top 10, had to pit early, dropped outside the points but would have elevated himself back into them. How the race would have unfolded from there, I think we know what would have happened. The tyre deg would have been so excessive they'd have had to do an extra pit stop, and he'd have tumbled down the order to around 14th, 15th. With the 10-second, 15-second time penalties or whatever that came, if Hulkenberg got lucky, it could have scraped himself inside the top 12 with those. But either way, I don't think points are ever possible in the race itself based in dry conditions. Having said that, though, that was never going to be Hulkenberg's fault, and he's done a stunning job. Now, normally I only award drivers a middle of the row 5 if they've retired, but I'm breaking the rules, just like F1 is breaking the rules. It does what the fuck it wants when it wants and manipulates the finishing positions. I'm awarding Nico Hulkenberg a perfect 10 this weekend, based on the sprint race, the qualifying efforts in both the sprint and the main, and in the race itself for the short period we saw of him. Because I think I've been overly harsh with Hulkenberg, having a great qualifying and tumbling out of points, and I've only been there giving him solid 6s, solid 7s, when he does deserve a hell of a lot more praise than that. Well, here's your praise, Nico. You did stunning this weekend. 3 crucial points for Haas. One of my drivers of the day, you know, Norris got the end result. Hulkenberg for me was close but no cigar in the actual race itself. I'd have loved to have seen him finish the race and see where he would have finished. If he'd have finished inside the points in that ass in that race overall, I think I'd have been awarding him massive bonus points. But, you know, as it is, it's a perfect 10 to Nico Hulkenberg this weekend. He didn't do anything wrong and deserves full recognition of his efforts. A perfect 10 to Nico Hulkenberg. So there we have it then, guys. Those were the runners and riders of the Austrian Grand Prix. Let me know your thoughts and feedback down below. Did I score any drivers too high? Any too low? The results updated with my points that I've just awarded are on the screen now for you to take a look at. And you're going to be saying, those aren't in order, those aren't in order. Well, that's just the table to see how your driver's done across a season. And the updated standings overall are going to be on the screen now for you to take a look at. See where the climbers and fallers are. It is so close in that mid-pack. It is so close. I can't believe it. It's something daft like 8 points is separating 10 drivers. It is bizarre. You've got a couple of front runners up there. You've got a couple of back markers down there. But that bit in the middle is so close and tight. It is going to be so interesting to see how this season plays out. I think this is the only thing that's keeping me going, to be honest. If I weren't recording this crawl room, I'd have switched that race off halfway through and I'd have never bothered watching Formula 1 again, to be honest with you. So yeah, at least this crawl room keeps me watching it, but for how much longer, I don't know. Massive thanks as always goes out to Dan of Mushy Gaming, as already mentioned at the start of the video, for everything he does for this series. Who can forget Dave, F1 Games PlayStation, for the Latifi of the Week skits that you all know and love. And who can forget, of course, Dominic Orlando for providing me with the voice of Nicholas Latifi for the skits. Thank you so much to all you guys. It's an absolute honour that you work with me with this series and make it the best it is. I'll see you all next week then for the Silverstone Grand Prix. See what happens. But yeah, I'm not holding my breath again, am I? So yeah, I'll see you all then. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, much love.